Captain Michael Torres sank into seat 12F, adjusting the olive-green jacket on his shoulders while his 8-year-old son, David, tugged at the seatbelt beside him. The afternoon flight from Denver to Atlanta was packed to capacity, a mix of business travelers and families returning home after Thanksgiving weekend. Michael brushed a hand through his dark hair, still carrying the weight of the choice he had made half a year earlier. Leaving the Air Force after 15 years hadn't come easy, but David needed steadiness. Since Maria's passing 2 years ago, it had just been the two of them, and Michael knew his son deserved more than occasional video calls from distant deployments. "Dad, look at those jets," David whispered, pressing his nose to the window as the plane rolled past a formation of military aircraft parked in the distance. Michael's mouth curved into a faint smile, the sight stirring his own childhood awe of airplanes. "Those are F-22 Raptors, son, the most advanced fighter jets in the world." Across the aisle, a woman glanced up with interest. She looked to be in her late 30s, blonde hair tied neatly back, dressed in a sharp navy blazer. She had been typing steadily on her laptop since boarding, but now she closed it and leaned forward slightly. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I couldn't help overhearing. You sound like you know a bit about military aircraft." Michael gave a modest nod. "I've had some experience with them." She extended her hand across the aisle. "Sarah Coleman. I'm a journalist with Aviation Weekly. I'm actually working on a piece about modern fighter pilots. Would you mind if I asked about your connection to the military?" David looked up proudly. "My dad was a pilot. He flew the really fast ones." Michael laid a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "David, remember what we said about bothering people?" "Oh, he's not bothering me at all," Sarah said warmly. "A pilot, really? That must have been an incredible experience. What did you fly?" "F-22s. Mostly the last 8 years," Michael answered, his voice steady with the quiet assurance of someone who had mastered one of the most demanding jobs on Earth. Sarah's eyes widened. "F-22s? Those pilots are the best of the best. There are fewer than 200 qualified worldwide." "Something like that," Michael replied, a little uneasy with the attention but appreciating her knowledge. The intercom chimed and the captain's voice filled the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been asked to hold our position briefly. Military aircraft in the area are conducting training exercises." Passengers pointed out the windows as 2 sleek Raptors swept into view, gliding in flawless formation about 1,000 feet above. Their movements carried the fluid grace that came only with countless hours of training and complete command of their machines. "They look just like the ones you used to fly, Dad," David whispered, his forehead pressed against the glass. An older man in the seat behind leaned forward. "Son, did you say your father flew those?" "Yes, sir," David answered proudly. "And he was really good at it. He has medals and everything." Heat rose in Michael's face. "David, that's enough." But Sarah's interest sharpened. "I don't mean to intrude, but what was your call sign? I've read that F-22 pilots often have unique ones." Michael hesitated. His call sign wasn't something he shared freely. It carried recognition, sometimes the wrong kind. Yet Sarah's curiosity felt genuine, and David's expectant eyes made refusal impossible. "Phantom," he said quietly. The reaction was instant. A man several rows ahead, who had been flipping through a magazine, snapped his head around. Dressed casually in a button-down shirt, he nonetheless carried the unmistakable bearing of a serviceman. "Did someone say Phantom?" he called out. Sarah frowned slightly. "Why? Is that important?" The man unbuckled and walked back, his face lit with disbelief and excitement. "Forgive me, sir, but did you say your call sign was Phantom?" Michael inclined his head reluctantly. "That's correct. Major Tom Bradley, F-16 pilot out of Shaw Air Force Base," the man said, thrusting out his hand with respect. "Sir, I've heard the stories. Red flag exercises, combat over Syria. You're a legend among fighter pilots." Other passengers began taking notice. Michael's discomfort deepened, though David's grin only widened. "What's red flag?" Sarah asked, leaning forward, her reporter's instincts fully engaged. Bradley glanced at Michael for approval before answering. "Red flag is the toughest, most realistic air combat training in the world. Phantom here still holds the record, 17 simulated kills in 5 days. No one has matched it. An elderly woman across the aisle gasped softly. Young man, are you saying this gentleman is some kind of hero? Michael shifted uneasily. Just someone who did his job, ma'am. Same as anyone who served. With respect, sir, Bradley pressed. Your actions in Operation Desert Shield were extraordinary. When those Iranian fighters threatened our reconnaissance planes, you... Major, Michael interrupted gently but firmly. I appreciate your words, but this isn't the place to discuss operational details. David tugged at his sleeve. Dad, what's he talking about? What did you do? Michael met his son's eyes, full of curiosity and pride. How could you explain to an 8-year-old that protecting others sometimes required hard choices? Sometimes, son, pilots have to make split-second decisions to keep people safe. That's part of the job. Sarah had been listening closely. Mr. Torres, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but in my research on modern aviation, your name comes up often. The pilots I've interviewed speak of you with deep respect. Heroes. Michael shook his head. I'm just a father raising his boy. The real heroes are the ones who didn't come home. His words settled over the cabin, quieting the nearby conversations. Bradley took an empty seat nearby. If I may ask, sir, why did you leave the service? Pilots of your caliber usually stay for life. Michael's gaze fell on David. My son lost his mother 2 years ago. He needed his father at home, not halfway across the world 10 months out of the year. Some things matter more than flying. The engines hummed steadily, filling the silence that followed. Sarah shut her laptop completely, her story forgotten as she studied the man across from her. That must have been an incredibly difficult choice, she said softly. The hardest I've ever made, Michael admitted. Flying wasn't just my job, it was who I was. But David comes first now. He's already lost one parent. I couldn't risk him losing another. David reached for his father's hand. I'm glad you came home, Dad. I missed you when you were gone. Michael squeezed his hand, the familiar ache tightening in his throat. The intercom chimed again. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been cleared for takeoff. Flight attendants, please prepare for departure. As the plane began to roll, Bradley stood. Sir, it's been an honor. If you ever decide to fly again, even as an instructor, there are plenty who would give anything to learn from you. Michael nodded politely. Thank you, Major. But my flying days are behind me. Once Bradley returned to his seat, Sarah leaned over once more. Mr. Torres, I know you value your privacy, but would you ever consider sharing your story? Not the classified missions, just your thoughts on service, sacrifice, and what defines a hero. People need to hear voices like yours. Michael considered her words as the aircraft lifted, the ground falling away beneath them. Out the window, the Raptors still cut across the sky in disciplined formation. Maybe one day, he said at last. But right now my most important mission is sitting right here beside me. David looked up at him, eyes shining. Dad, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Michael's chest swelled with pride and a sense of responsibility. Then be kind, be honest, and always put family first. The rest will fall into place. As the jet climbed toward cruising altitude, Michael Torres, the pilot once called Phantom, held his son's hand and gazed out at the drifting clouds, knowing that the truest acts of heroism weren't found in the skies, but in the quiet choices to love over glory.